corner, we're going to look at negative exponents. So before we look at negative exponents, we're going to look at the zero exponent property. And what that means is any base that's raised to the zero power is equal to 1. So let's look at some examples. If I have 3x in parentheses and I raise that to the zero power, that answer is 1. The next example is 3x to the 0, but this time the 3 is not in parentheses. So the exponent goes first in order of operations. X to the 0 power is 1, and that 3 just stays as is. So 3 times 1 would be 3. So this would be 3. In this next example, we have a lot going on in parentheses. We have the coefficient of 4, and we have a lot of variables, but it's all raised to the 0 power. So that is just going to be 1. Okay, let's take a look at some other examples. Again, in letter A, we have a lot going on in this parentheses as well. That's raised to the 0 power, so that's just 1. In letter B, I have a to the 4th over a to the 2nd. I'm going to subtract those like we learned in our last lesson. That gives me a to the 2nd. And I have b to the 0, which is just going to be 1. So my final answer there is going to be a to the 2nd. Okay, moving on, let's see what we have. I have 56 over 8. That's going to give me a 7. And when I look at my g's, I have g to the 2nd over g to the 0. I subtract them, and I say as my numerator, my g to the 2nd is the higher power, so that stays as g to the 2nd. Same thing with h. I have h to the 1st over h to the 0, which is 1. So I am left with an h there. J to the 11th over j to the 0 is j to the 11th. So my final answer there is letter A. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the negative exponent property. There's a lot of things we have to do when we simplify. First of all, we can't have any negative exponents. We have to make sure we have positive exponents. The base has to appear just one time. If it appears more than that, we can simplify it by putting it together. All the powers are going to be gone. We simplified them away, and all fractions are in simplest form. So for instance, if we had something like 2 over 4, we have to make sure we simplify that to 1/2. Okay, if the exponent is negative, I like to move it to the other side of the dividing line, and then the exponent becomes positive. So let's see how this works. In letter A, my exponent is in my denominator, so I'm going to move that across the dividing line, and that becomes positive. And that I would be left with the 1 on the bottom, so 3 squared is 9. That's my final answer. Looking at the next example, before I simplify, I'm just going to move everything around. A to the 3rd is positive, that stays. B to the negative 4th goes to the other side of the dividing line and becomes positive. C to the negative 2nd, again, starts as a denominator, goes to the other side of the dividing line, becomes positive. Now I have to see if I can simplify that, which I can't. I have A and C in the top, B in the bottom. Each base only appears once. All right, let's look at letter C. Now, this is in parentheses, so the whole thing is raised to that negative 3 power. So I'm going to move the base stays the same, to the other side of the dividing line, and that 3 becomes positive. So I have 1 over, now everything inside gets raised to the power, right? So I have 5 to the 3rd, C to the 3rd. So my final answer there is 1 over 125. That's 5 to the 3rd, C to the 3rd. And that's your final answer. Okay, moving on. Same thing. We're just going to simplify and do a lot of powers that we've done already. So let's see what I have first. I'm going to draw my dividing line and see how this goes. So I have 3 over negative 36. That's going to simplify to negative 1 over 12. My g to the negative 3rd on the top moves to the other side dividing line, becomes positive. My h to the 2nd stays where it is. Again, I have g to the 3rd on the bottom also. That stays. H to the 5th also stays. That's positive. And j to the negative 4th moves and becomes positive. Now I just have to clean that up a little bit. So I have negative, and I don't think I'm going to need that 1, but I'm going to leave the 12 there. H to the 2nd, I have h to the 2nd over h to the 5th. There's more on the bottom, right? H to the 5th. So I'm going to subtract it. I'm going to leave that there. So I have h to the 3rd. And then I have j is going to stay where it is, j to the 4th. And I have g to the 3rd times g to the 3rd, which gives me g to the 6th. Now, the only thing I have to do is make sure my variables are in alphabetical order. My numerator, I only have a j, so I'm just going to rewrite that. And the only thing I have to switch here is g and h. So I have 12, and then I have g to the 6th, h to the 3rd, and that's my final answer. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the next one. Same idea. There's my dividing line. First, I'll look at my coefficients. 42 over 14 divides evenly. That's 3, or 3 over 1. My r to the negative 2 moves to the other side and becomes positive. T to the negative 6, same thing, other side and becomes positive. U to the third is positive. That's fine where it is. R to the second stays where it is. It's positive. T to the second, same thing, stays where it is. And U to the negative 3 moves and becomes positive. Okay, now I'll clean all that up. So I have 3. And I only have u's on the top, so I'm going to add those together. So I get u to the 6th. On the bottom, I'll write the letters alphabetically. R to the second times r to the second. Remember, I'm going to add those. So I get r to the 4th. And then I have t to the 6th and t to the second. I add those and I get t to the 8th. And that is my final answer. Okay, let's take a look at our last few problems. What value of n makes the statement true? Well, I have an n as my power, and I notice I have an x, y to the 4th raised to a power is equal to 1. Well, the only thing that's going to work there is 0, right? Anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. So in that case, my value for n is equal to 0. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. I have my n is my exponent for my r. So if I want, I can just kind of ignore everything else and just look at my r. So I have r to the second stays on the top. R to negative 3 moves to the other side and becomes positive. So that gives me the r to the 5th is equal r to the n. So then I know n is equal to 5. Okay, thanks so much for stopping by today. You have a great day.